Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Community Hour. You might right off the bat notice some things are different about this Community Hour. One, we are in the new house here. Holly's over there snuffling and making noise. Number one. Number two, the lighting is really bad because we've dipped into our prepper stash, and that's our current video lighting because everything is packed up in boxes. Number three, we're definitely missing the better looking half here that we normally have for Community Hour. Gabby is currently gone. She's on the road right now. She's doing swift water rescue training with the local fire department. And so she's going to be getting back later tonight, and she will be a certified badass after doing that. And it's very good because the local fire department, we've been doing swift water rescues. We did that a lot in the last flood, and we were using fire hoses for ropes, and we had no training or anything like that. So it's going to be good to have some experts in the house, one of which will be Gabby, and then I'll do the training next year. And also because Gabby had to be gone this weekend, we are not doing the topic we talked about. I know we had done the video about how we were going to talk about finances on the homestead, and Gabby was super excited to do that one. She didn't want to miss it. So we decided to do a different topic this week, which is how I'm designing the farm. So it's just going to be me here talking about the farm. I know Gabby's not here. You got to look at me. It's not as good. Maybe I'll get Holly to sit over here because she's at least a little bit cuter than I, but hopefully we can have a really cool conversation and bounce some ideas back and forth about starting farms and such. I've got my cup of coffee ready to go. I've got my Walmart lights, and we'll see if I can hold up the technology end. That is normally Gabby's job, and it's very possible we'll lose battery here. We have 17% on the laptop, and we're improvising everything. I don't really have a permanent power source right now, so we'll see how well we do. But yeah, here we are in the new house. As you can see, it is still in the mudding phase right now, but we ended up selling that other property that we were living in, and so we had to move a lot quicker than we thought. But we really wanted to catch the top of the market and sell that other property we had, because I think we're about at the crest now of the housing market, and I think the crash is beginning. I could be wrong, but probably not. It seems like we're at the end of how much money printing can actually happen, and I'm starting to see the foreclosure signs pop up all over the county here on the ground, but prices are still sky high. So we went ahead and sold the cabin and moved out to the property, even though it's not ready. But that's fine. We've homesteaded before. We've gone off grid before, and so we're bringing in water from a spring, and we're using temporary power, and we're getting by just fine. It's been a really fun experiment in off-grid living without much planning, because again, this was a last-minute sale of the property, so we just got out here really fast. But welcome everybody into the chat. Feel free to drop those thumbs up, because that drives it up in the algorithm, and then we can talk to more people and have a bigger conversation, which is always more fun. But let's talk about starting a farm. I'm not doing this video as an expert in farming, because I have not successfully run a commercial farm yet. This is a new endeavor for Gabby and I. New York Redneck, good to have you in the house. Howdy. This is a new endeavor, so I can't point to some past success, but I think I can talk about my ideas, and I think you might find them interesting, and maybe it might jog some ideas for you for starting your own farm, because every single one of us, I really firmly believe, every single one of us needs to go out and start a farm right now. And I don't mean start farming. New York Redneck, you're an expert in sheetrock. Yeah, unfortunately. I was not an expert in sheetrock a few weeks ago, but I am now. Next house is going to be cordwood or log cabin. I'm never dealing with a standard build again. I hate it. Mary, good to see you outside of the Facebook world over there. Good to see you on here. But anyway, I do believe that we all need to have a farm, and that doesn't mean you need to have land right now. What you need to do is go out and start your farm. A farm is a business. It's a business name. When I started Hollow Top Farms, I didn't own land. It was just an idea. Hollow Top Farms. I had an idea for what I wanted in a farm, and I decided to start. When they started Microsoft or HP or Amazon or any of these companies, it didn't exist yet. It was just a name and idea. So a farm is just any other kind of business. You have permission. It's okay for you to start a farm without land, and you want to start growing it. You want to grow a social media presence. You want to grow an email list. You want to grow the idea. You want to evolve the idea of your farm and how you're going to advance it, because there's a million different ways of farming. There's a million ways to approach it. You can do everything from U-Picks to CSA models, farm stands. You can sell to retailers. You can sell to co-ops. You can form a co-op. There's a billion different ways to go about selling your product. And you can kind of start to figure that out. So really, like tomorrow, everyone should wake up, and if they don't have a farm name, just go think of a name that really fits what you want to do, and go buy the domain, buy the .com. It's probably $12 on GoDaddy. Easy to do. You can use Weebly to set up a website, open a a social media page if you're still on social media. So before I even start talking about my design and my model for the farm, I just think that everyone should do that. Everyone should have a farm. I really like the homestead farming model, the farmsteading, I guess it's called, where you're basically homesteading and selling the surplus. I think that's largely the scale of agriculture that we need to go back to, is that very small kind of cash crop agriculture where you're growing most of what you need to be self-sufficient, including your textiles, your fuel, your food, your building supplies. And then whatever you grow really well, whatever turns out to be your specialty and the thing that works really well on your land and the thing that you enjoy doing, maybe you like raising sheep, maybe you like raising rabbits, maybe you're really good with perennials, whatever that thing is, that should be your specialty in your cash crop. Homesteading in the heartland, very good to see you. We have some cool folks in the room. This is gonna be really fun tonight. So let's make this a brainstorming session too. I'm just gonna keep talking about my ideas for a farm, but let's fill this chat up with some cool ideas as well. I like turning these into brainstorming sessions. So Hollowtop Farms is my farm. Again, that was a name that existed before. D. Silyansky, am I saying that right? Sorry if I mispronounced that. Hello. Hollowtop Farms. It's been active for about 2 or 3 years. I've made sales under the farm name, but it's really just been odds and ends. You know, when I had a bumper crop of tomatoes, something like that, I would sell stuff under the farm name. But for the most part, I've just been growing the social media for it and the email list for my farm. But now we're here on the 5-acre site and we're ready to start really doing this business in earnest. Gabby and I are both really preparing to make farming, commercial farming, a major part of how we spend our day. We're going to spend a couple hours probably every day planting and building infrastructure for our farm. So basically the entire business idea behind the farm, behind Hollowtop Farms, is that we're going to grow things from a diverse permaculture perspective. And we're just going to fill out this 5 acres with as much diversity as we can. We're not going to do the opposite of what everybody says. We're not going to look at what the market supports right now. We're not going to look at what the market demand is. We're just going to start growing the biggest variety of food that we can. We're in a very rapidly changing climate. In case you haven't noticed this year, we are in a solar cycle that is going to really dramatically change things for a kind of an indeterminate amount of time. So we don't want to get really good at growing one crop and then just have it 2 years later not really be working. If any of you are trying to grow tomatoes right now in the Southeast, you've probably noticed it's a rough year for tomatoes. There's a lot of businesses, farms, where tomatoes are the main cash crop. I just talked to a neighbor at the farmer's market here in Hickman County, and they are struggling, and they have their tomatoes in a high tunnel. And they're doing everything right. They know how to farm. They've been doing it for a long time, but there's just not a lot of sunlight. It's just been cloudy, overcast, and rainy. Very unseasonable, very strange weather. And so we don't want to build our farm on a model of selling something that may be hard to grow or demand may change or anything like that. Instead, we're going to grow as diversely as possible, and we're going to build a model to sell whatever we get. So 1 week we might have a whole lot of sumac berries and blackberries and tomatoes. And then in the next month, we might have a lot of radishes and turnips and cold weather crops. And so we want a model that shifts with that, a model where our customers expect diversity, where they expect randomness, and they actually look forward to it. So we're not trying to sell greens or lettuces to the store. We're not trying to do a model like that. We're trying to really build a base of customers who are okay with us having a random assortment of food all the time. And so the way we're going to do that, because we're content creators, is we're going to do a farm stand and a CSA model. And the CSA model will be basically, we're going to market the permaculture aspect. We're going to say, hey, we're not going to be sending you a box full of normal things. It's not just going to be tomatoes and carrots. It's going to be wild foraged things that we've farm foraged and sustainably harvested. It's going to be strange bumper crops like Jerusalem artichokes and things that you aren't used to seeing in supermarkets. It's going to be varied, and there's going to be a lot of stuff in it. Now, that could be a hard sell because that's a lot of strange foods. People want food they know how to use. So what we're going to do is kind of make it an adventure. We're going to say, we're also going to give you cooking tips. So as Gabby and I learned to cook with all of these very diverse, overlooked foods that do really well in our region, we are going to learn how to cook with them, experiment with them, have fun in the kitchen, and then we're going to write down recipes and put those up on our farm website. And we'll include them in our CSA box. So when a customer gets a CSA box, whatever random assortment of weird foods are in there, we'll have a list of things you can make. Like, hey, try this recipe, try this soup, try this salad, try this way of cooking meat. And so we're really going to try, we don't need a big customer base. We're going to be a very small farm. This first year, we're only going to be able to service a few families. And so we can be very picky about our customers. And that's something important to remember is don't try to sell to the whole world. You only need to sell to your community. Like if you're doing the farmsteading thing, you're selling small volumes, it's not that hard to find the customers. Everybody wants fresh, nutritive food. You're the one holding the valuable product here, especially as we go into food system collapse. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to get only the kind of customers we want. Just like we're building a community here on the internet and then here in the county of like-minded people who value self-sufficiency and liberty and sustainability and regenerative agriculture. That's the business we're going to build with our farm too. So we're going to be very picky. We're going to use this platform. We're going to use our social media platform. We're going to use the community. We're going to use Gabby's marketing skills. And we're going to assemble this group of customers who really want to support a farm who's growing a more diverse, randomized mixture of foods. So that's our very base model of how we're going to start everything. And there's a lot more to it, but for now, we got lots of comments that I'm overlooking right now. Homesteading the Heartland says, you are coming out with me on the tripod. Have to move sprinkler and prune tomatoes again. So behind. 100 suckers rooting to start more plants if needed. Yeah, tomatoes I've struggled to stay up with. Cindy Stone is a neighbor. She's often here on YouTube, and she's given me so many incredible heirloom tomato seedlings. And we've been in the midst of this crazy move, and I've just got them sitting outside. I can see them right now out my window, and I can see these tomato seedlings unplanted, and it's just torturing me. But as you can see, we have a lot more pressing matters, unfortunately, to deal with, which is this house build. But yeah, it's hard to, that's a whole new topic for another day, is like how to keep up with all of the work on the homestead. New York Redneck says, Jerusalem artichokes are good chopped and baked in the oven like potatoes. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to experimenting with cooking with those. And he says, put lemon on them to reduce how gassy they make you. That's a good tip. I've heard that they really can cause upset stomachs in some people. I've heard that that's something that if you introduce it slowly into your diet, that can also help, because it's a gassy food. People call them Jerusalem artichokes for a reason. But yeah, I was just using that as an example, but I could sit here and list all day what we're planting, because we have over 250 varieties of seeds that we're going to plant on this farm. So we're going for crazy diversity. It's not a normal model, and it's not what you would call an efficient model, because we're doing polycultures. And so we have things grouped together. You know, you have a row of tomatoes, and we'll have things like that, but it's going to be very diverse. And it's not just going to be huge, massive rows of one crop. We're not doing the monocropping thing. And so a lot of people would argue that makes harvesting really inefficient, but I would argue that because we're not dealing with sprays and we're just letting nature take its course, and we're not fighting animals, we're not fighting deer, we're not fighting insects, nothing like that, we're not fertilizing, that we're getting that efficiency back in our time savings and all of that. And instead, we're spending more time slowly harvesting, slowly selecting weeds, and interplanting, intercropping, and seasonal cropping and things like that. So I think it's going to be just as efficient or much more efficient would be my guess. But of course, we'll try to track all of those results here on the farm. Homesteading the Heartland says the house has been down with high fevers, so way behind. Oh yeah, there's nothing like that when everybody in the family gets sick and you're both down. Gabby and I both had that happen last year. We both got sick, and man, it takes you down for a week and you just feel so behind. We've both accepted that we're always going to feel like we're behind in everything, and that we just need to accept it and be okay with feeling behind. One thing we've been trying to do is really take a day of rest too, and that's hard because we're workaholics and we always feel like we're behind in everything. But I'm realizing how important it really is, and that we work way more efficiently when we do take that day off. Mary says, have you heard of fulvic for soil replenishment? I'm not familiar with that at all, but I'm always willing to learn something new. Homesteading the Heartland says, oh, you're being interviewed by the Ann Lynn show around 9 p.m. if you want to see the update around here. Okay, cool. Everyone tuned into that. Homesteading in the Heartland has some really awesome content, y'all. So go see that. It's an organic replenishment, Mary says. Okay. I'll have to look into that. Okay, so let's get back to the farm topic. So I've told you basically what our model is for the farm, which is that we are going to just try to sell whatever the surplus is off the farm. And we're going to try to build a market that supports that is excited about the idea of not having a consistent crop and eating with the seasons, because we need to do that. We can't keep eating out of season. We don't have that luxury anymore. The fossil fuel era is over. The chemical agriculture era is over. The industrialized and subsidized era of agriculture is over. It's failing right now in real time. It's collapsing. So we're all going to go back to eating seasonally, no matter what. It's going to happen. Well, either that or, the people in smart cities will eat whatever garbage food or human that they're feeding it to them. But for the rest of us, we are going to end up going back to eating seasonally. But you might as well build a market ahead of that. We do have the luxury of mechanized agriculture and subsidized agriculture and all these commodities for a little while longer, at least, and who knows how long it's going to last. But it seems to be collapsing, but we're in this weird period of transition right now. So if you can try to look ahead to what's going to happen, which is that we're going to return to small scale farming in these rural areas, and it's going to be probably without access to many inputs, then you realize you might as well look forward to that model and start building that model now. So you've already designed your farm properly and you're running it properly and you have a customer base that's ready to go. So that's why we're doing that really diverse polyculture type of a CSA model. It's going to be a box they get every week, and it's just going to be the widest variety of vegetables and fruits and whatever other produce we have. So the question is, how do we do that though? How do we build that specifically, that kind of a market? And this is where I wish Gabby was here. If you missed the intro, she is doing swiftwater rescue training right now with the fire department, so she'll be back later tonight. But she's the marketing expert, and so it's been very useful to hear her ideas on that. And so basically, we're going to do nothing too revolutionary. What we're going to do is have an email list and a text list. If people want to get a weekly text or an email, they just sign up either on social media or at our physical farm stand, and we will send out this weekly blast and say, here's what's coming out this week, and get people excited and start to put those recipes in there, and get people acclimated to the idea of receiving a whole different pile of food every week. Now, we're still going to have a lot of staple crops like potatoes and things like that will stay consistent probably throughout the process because they also store well. But we're going to do something that I think is pretty different. So I'm hoping to track the results of that. But we're also kind of prepping our social media for that. We're trying to really reach out to people who understand permaculture and regenerative agriculture and who have at least a basic understanding that they cannot continue to eat out of season and that they can't necessarily have tomatoes in December. So this is all pretty theoretical stage right now, but I feel pretty confident that we can grow this market with the farm because we're here at a new property. We have an immense amount of work to do, and we're going to grow very slowly anyway. We're only going to be able to meet a little demand at a time. So we really only need to find one or two customers here and there, just one here, one there. Even if we only got like one customer, maybe a couple of customers every month signed up for the CSA. First of all, that's a recurring customer, but that's probably the only growth we're actually going to be able to reliably meet. With a CSA, you really have to be reliable with your production. So that's going to make it a lot more manageable, the growth manageable for us. So I'm not too worried about us being able to build a market that is okay with this model, that doesn't need an exact say, like, I need my lettuce this week, I need my tomatoes this week. And I think it's a model that a lot of us are going to need to do. And I think it really fits the farmstead model, the idea of you're homesteading. First of all, we all just need to be growing all of the food that we can for our families and then start selling the surplus. So I would like to hear if anybody else is thinking about that or what anyone else is thinking about the property, because again, I really think we all need to have a farm. I don't just mean that we all need to grow food, but we all need to have a commercial small scale farm. It's really as simple as just thinking up a name. Even if you're living in your car at a rest stop and you don't have land and you're deeply in debt, you can start growing your business now. You can name your farm, think about the idea of what you want to create and how you're going to create it, and just start creating it. New York Redneck says, I started taking over the grass behind my local pizzeria parking lot and making it into a garden. That is badass, man. That's so cool. That's actually something that was going to be the next segue. So that's a perfect segue into the next thing I want to talk about with farming, which is even if you don't have land, even if you don't have anything prepared, just start the business, start the idea. You can find land. Land is everywhere. It's easy. There's so much unused land. There's guerrilla gardening. There's places that are overlooked. There's underpasses, overpasses. There's parks. There's abandoned vacant lots. But before you really need to do any guerrilla gardening, it's very easy to go use somebody else's land. There's a guy in Memphis who he goes to older gardeners who really can't get out and garden anymore. I think he just walks through older neighborhoods and he finds them. And he approaches them and says, "Hey, I'll come garden. You can have a percentage of the produce that I make." And so these older gardeners get to watch their garden come back to life, and they get fresh, nutritive food, and he gets space to garden in right there in an urban area. So there's people's homes like that you can use. You can approach anybody, friends, family, and use their land. There are churches. That's something we're really working on out here, is building community gardens in churches. Churches, schools, businesses. I know Billy from Permapastures Farm. He used to farm at his place of work. He would do it in, I think they were living in the parking lot in an RV, and then he was just farming right there in the grass median with chicken tractors and such, which I think is a really cool idea. New York Redneck says, "I love taking over neglected areas and making them amazing. Nobody can get mad." Yeah, and then you make this example that the whole world can see. You really can farm everywhere. You don't have to farm on your land. I know of a permaculture farmer in Oregon. My brother was telling me about this. My brother is a gardener there in Oregon, and this permaculture farmer, he sold him initially. They developed a relationship after he sold him some fruit plants. And what this guy started doing, that owns a permaculture farm, is he gives my brother free plants. When he has surplus, he gives him free elderberry and other berry plants. And then my brother plants them and takes care of them, because this permaculture guy knows that my brother will, work really hard to take care of the plant. And the deal is he can then come once a year and take a bunch of cuttings off of that. So he's farming my brother's yard. My brother's getting free plants. He's getting free pruning done for him. And then the permaculture farm has expanded his little operation into somebody else's yard, where he goes and he gets his cuttings every year. You can also go out and find cuttings to take. I very carefully mark out, actually have flagging tape. And if I'm driving by and I'm on like a public road and I see an elderberry bush or something, which is very common in low-lying areas, I'll get out, tag it up, and then I'll come back in the winter when it's dormant, take a cutting. You could really build a whole farm without buying a seed. You could just go take cuttings and find seeds and build it that way. So you can find what you need for your farm, and you can grow your stuff in public areas and private areas. And you can fix up really sad areas and make them really nice, which is just such a cool opportunity. And it's what we need to do. It's the greatest asset and resource us permaculture farmers have, is that we have a great, perfect template to build a new world on, because we have a damaged planet. We have a damaged, destroyed, desertifying nation and world. And that's opportunity. That means, great, our system is the best system for this. We get to come in with the solution and fix up all these broken areas. That's what I've been doing with my permaculture fix and flips, is going into like old meth labs and trailers and just the worst possible places you can imagine, and then cleaning them up and planting them out with food and making them, habitable, not just habitable again, but like actually so that people can see the future for the property. And that's a whole nother way that a farm, if you're stepping your way up in your farm, you can do that kind of fix and flip. Hollow Top Farms has already changed the locations. We haven't really launched our commercial operation on any significant scale yet, and we're already on our fourth property actually. Because we've just started, like the first one was the old meth lab trailer, and then a $500 RV lot, and then that little cabin we were living in, and now this 5-acre site. And we've been learning what we're doing. We've been figuring out how we want to garden and what we want to do commercially. We've been building our customer base. We've been starting to do some sales and doing plant swaps and such. But we've also been making a profit by flipping the properties. So we get to grow food in a property that we're flipping, and then the growing of the food helps sell the property. Every property I've sold so far was primarily sold, like, people liked the garden. The trailer that I sold, the people that bought it from me were preppers. And it was last March, at the height of all the craziness. So they were very excited that there was an established garden there. So like, I would really encourage people to do that. If you're trying to do this on a budget, just go buy whatever property you can. Save for just a few months. You can buy a $500 RV lot in Arkansas. You can find a $2,000 or $3,000 lot in Tennessee still. Like, those cheap properties still exist. If you don't have a lot of savings, you can still access some kind of land and get rolling. But just really keep that in mind. A farm is just a business, so you don't need to have the operation yet. You just need to start the business. You need the name, the domain name, whatever social media pages you want. Just get it going. Just have some faith in the idea and then start it. And it's just a lot of fun. It's fun to get a logo and to think of a name for a farm and start dreaming and planning. And it's a great way to go about that. Let's see. Oh, my local church garden is amazing, says New York Redneck. Yeah, man, church gardens excite me. A long time ago in Oregon, when I was going to college, I used to have a position as a music minister at the local at a church. And in my last year there, the guy that was the guitarist in the band, he started a church garden, and I had no idea. You never know until you know a person. He was the most incredible green thumb and one of the most inspiring people in retrospect in my life, because I was gone on tour for a few weeks, and I came back and there was this field of produce, melons and pumpkins and just like an incredible abundance. And he had created that in the community, and at the community church, just on the, extra little bit of grassy median they had. And it wasn't just that he started feeding the community nutritive food, but when you do a church garden, people start, like, life develops around that garden. People start hanging out and hanging around the garden. We recently planted out a community garden here at a place called Hidden Valley Lakes, and it's one of the most poverty-stricken areas in this region of Tennessee. A lot of wonderful folks in there, but there's also a lot of drug issues and a lot of poverty and like really harsh living conditions for a lot of people. And this community garden, it goes so far beyond the food. It's made people like really start to be, I think, proud of where they live, and they're all starting to take part. And these people who other people would consider poor, they're now helping build this community garden to feed other people, not themselves. So suddenly they're starting to have a pride and say, I'm part of the solution of my community. And like, we just started it in one day. We went there in the pouring rain, Gabby and I, with one other person from the community, and we planted it out kind of like under the cover of night, because they sort of only barely had permission. But once we got it in there, the community garden was like established, and it was the community garden is to feed like the children in the community. So they really couldn't get rid of it at that point. There's a community association in that area, and like, what are you going to do? Take the food out of the mouths of children? So we kind of like furtively kind of snuck a community garden in there, and it's been just an incredibly rewarding, exciting experience. What was the topic I was drifting into? Oh yeah. So yeah, you can start your farm anywhere. You get the name and then just start planting wherever you can. If you have land, if you have a homestead, start it there. But you can expand into other people's areas as well. I know that Joel Salatin has done a lot of work showing that, like, just renting or leasing land, you can really be truly profitable, because when you come in with regenerative techniques like rotational grazing or holistic grazing, you are so much more profitable than standard grazing of, for example, cattle. So you can go into a site where the rent is nothing because nobody wants to rent it. And you can make enough to really just make that rent payment really insignificant. And a lot of people are doing that with great success. This may have to be the community half hour, everybody. I'm struggling without my better half here with the technology side of things, and we're in the new house where we don't really have permanent power. So I'm running this sort of off grid, and this laptop is about to go dead. So I don't think we're going to make it to the full hour, unfortunately, which is really sad. I was just getting rolling talking about the farm, but I think we've actually covered a good amount of information of how we're approaching things, which is, I'll just recap. Hollow Top Farms, our model is this. We're going to grow the most diversity that we can on our land. We're not going to focus on any one crop. We're just going to throw as many different kinds of seeds as we can. Vegetables, perennials, annuals, fruits, tubers, as much as we can, all of which will be created. Let's see if we can squeeze in one more topic. How much we can grow is limited by the fertility we can produce. So that comes from our animal side of our farm. So our animals, we're not trying to sell the meat right now. Our only really thing we're thinking about animals is we need manure. So that's why we're focused heavily on rabbits. I'm doing a big rabbit build right now, building my rabbit infrastructure, because I'm going to bring in a big herd of rabbits. And that's because with everyone going to homesteading right now, I can sell rabbits really well. So the idea is I'm not going to focus on butchering rabbits or anything like that. I'm just going to raise lots of baby rabbits, and I'm going to sell them off when they come of age. But the whole time they're going to be making manure. And the reason this works well for my farm is I have a good organic hay source nearby, a good local farmer who makes a safe product without persistent herbicides, and I can bring in organic feed and such. So those are the only inputs I need to bring in. I give them to the rabbits. It's paid for by the sales of the rabbits. So all of my fertility is paid for, and then I just spread that fertility throughout the land in the form of compost. So I do rabbit manure, hay, I'll get wood chips, sticks, leaves, grass, every bit of organic matter that I can get. But the rabbits are going to be the main source of that. And then we're also doing chickens and ducks. And the chickens are going to be running tractors across the land. And every time we move the chicken tractor, we'll plant back in that site. They'll be fertilizing the ground and tilling it up for us. So that's the whole model of Hollow Tub Farms is, first of all, we're growing as fast as our animals will allow us to grow. As fast as we can pump food into animals and make them poop it out, that's as fast as we can grow our food production. Our only other limiting factor is how much labor and time we can invest. We're not limited by space. We only have about an acre of good growable space on this 5-acre site, and that's so much more than I can tackle right now. Like, you really don't need much space for a successful market garden farm at all. People are doing it on 1/10 of an acre. And so after we spread the fertility as far and fast as we can on the property, we're planting as diversely as we can, over 250 varieties of plants. And then we're designing a CSA model and a farm stand model of customers who understand that we're not going to give them out of season produce. We're not going to be giving them tomatoes in December. We're not going to be giving them, we're going to be growing things with the season appropriately for this climate. And we're going to be growing weird stuff that you don't normally see in supermarkets, Jerusalem artichokes and sumac and all these very different things that do really well here. And I really feel confident that we can build that kind of a base of customers for our farm. It's almost like, as a musician, I think of it as a fan base. Like, I'm building a fan base for my farm on social media and then selling to them. We're focusing hyper local. We do not want to be delivering all over the place. We're going to deliver once a week. We'll go out in a car, make one route. We're planning out that route around population centers. Like, we're going to focus on the closest community first with our first customers. And then we're going to look at the areas where we want to drive. Like, I don't want to drive into Nashville, but Franklin is a town that's pretty prosperous. There's a lot of wealthy people there. It's a lot of people who are likely to want to buy organic food and stuff like that and be a part of the CSA, and they're going to have the budget for it. But I can take back ways, country roads the whole way. I don't have to jump on an interstate. I don't have to risk my life on that. And it's a county that's more conservative. Like, I'm not going to deal with Davidson County anymore. That's where Nashville is. And it's a smart city. It's sustainable development. It's Agenda 21. It's run by our enemies, basically, by bad people. So I don't want to do business in that city any more than I have to. And as a musician, I already have to all the time. So that's the whole model of our farm. I know it's very weird. It's very different. It's nothing like commodity farming, and it's kind of a strange idea, but we'll see how well it works. But I think this will allow us to grow without stress. It'll allow us to grow part-time and to farm part-time so we can focus on our passions. My passion is music. Gabby's passion is writing. And those are both fields that take a lot of work to make them financially viable. So the farm is going to work for us. We're not going to work for the farm is the idea. And if we can't assemble a customer base to sell things in that diverse way, then fine. But I think we can. I feel pretty confident that we can do it. And then we can ideally put those ideas of how to do that out there. Gan says, appreciate your time and efforts. Thank you. Homesteading the Heartland says, good info, still listening. Thank you. As we figure out this farm model, I've got to figure out with Gabby how we're going to bring all that content here to y'all. I don't know if we're going to do it on Sovereign Village Project or on the Finding Country publication that we're working on. We're really not counting on YouTube being a tool we can use for forever. You know how freely I speak on here, and eventually I'm going to get strikes and get banned. So we may start to separate that out. New York Redneck says, you can do it, everyone needs to eat. Yeah, we're also coming in a time where farmers are going to have a lot more leverage. We're going to be able to say, you know what, you're going to buy what I have and you're going to like it because food is going up. It's not a theory anymore. It's not speculation anymore. Prices are skyrocketing. Inflation is happening. Hyperinflation is happening. Economic, societal collapse. It's here. It's on our doorstep. And so what an exciting time to be a farmer. And we all need to be farmers. And this is a model that I think anybody can do. You can start it anywhere. You can start it with anything. If you can buy one rabbit or one breeding pair of rabbits, you can start your fertility. And then you can go track down wood chips and cardboard and other organic matter and start making compost. And then you start planting wherever you can access, whatever land you can get on, whether you own it, rent it, borrow it, or you sneak onto it. Just start farming. Your farm is wherever you are at. Whatever is around you when you look around, that's your farm. So I'm going to bow out early, everybody. New York Redneck, you just paid off your land 100% today. Congratulations, man. That is very awesome. Very big congratulations. What a good feeling that is. I remember the day I got my land. It was just so exciting for me. It was like a dream come true. But yeah, I'm going to bow out early today. Gabby will be back, and we will do that finances on the homestead topic next week that we talked about. I'm starting to have a little more time to get content out. I know I've been really lacking lately because we've been focusing so much on this build. So thank you everybody for sticking with me this whole time while I've been really sparse on content. Thank you for joining, and hope you all stay safe, be well, and happy homesteading.